Are you looking for true personal freedom? The freedom to design a life you truly desire? Then you're absolutely in the right place. True personal freedom comes from when you take 100% responsibility and control of your money and your mind. Here you're going to learn ideas, tips, and wisdom that's going to help you bridge the gap from where you are now to your dream life in the future. My name is Randy Wilson, and welcome to the RichMind Podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the RichMind Podcast. Today, I want to share a little bit about some of the things I've been going through here in 2023. If you're listening to this is the latter part of 2023. We're getting ready to obviously celebrate the new year. But I've been going through some things personally that I think that, number one, I can obviously share them with you today, that I hope that you will gain some value from, maybe be able to take some of these ideas and thoughts and see how they might be able to impact you positively in your life, which is why I want to share them with you here today. So 3 words have really come into my mind over the last few weeks that I really want to kind of dive a little bit deeper with you on each of them. And those 3 words are the ability to be persistent, the willingness to pivot, and also your ability to be patient. So where do those words come from? And why do I think those words are important to me as far as where I'm at in my life here in 2023, moving into and getting ready for 2024? So just a little bit of a backstory. I launched the podcast here in April. So 2023, I was very excited as far as what I thought the possibilities could be. I didn't know exactly where I was headed. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to accomplish. I just kind of decided one day. I was in a room with a couple of folks, mentioned the idea of the podcast, and they encouraged me to the point where I believed I could do it. So I went ahead and stepped into it and started to make things happen, which is super exciting. But as I've continued down this journey, the idea or the word keeps coming to my mind as far as pivots. So a lot of folks get concerned with the word change, right? Sometimes change can be a word that is, it triggers you. It can trigger you in a negative way. And I would say that I used to be the same way as well. And so the word that I've used to exchange for the word change is the word pivot. So what I've discovered, and what I'm discovering all the time, is that life is nothing more than a series of pivots. And we need to be willing and able to, number one, see the pivots coming, right? But also be willing to step into them as you are navigating this thing called life, right? As I mentioned, the podcast, as I've started out and I've just ventured into hitting record just like I am today, interviewing folks. Some fantastic guests have been on the podcast, and I thank each and every one of them so far for their contribution to the podcast to this point. But I've gone through 2 or 3 different pivots for the podcast, trying to decide what I want it to look like, how I want it to be. That's the beauty of launching something that is of your own, is right. It's your idea. It's your baby, so to speak, right? You can make it be anything you want. And if it's not necessarily fitting into what your thoughts or your ideas are, make a pivot and change, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm actually in the middle of a pivot with the podcast. I'm trying to see how I want to continue forward. I'm hoping you're finding value in the message I've been sharing with you so far. But I just wanted to express that life is nothing more than a series of pivots, and you've got to be willing to embrace those pivots. Take the word change out if that's a trigger word for you. And in place of that word, just think of life as pivots, and you never know where those pivots are going to take you. It can be super exciting. It can be super challenging. But at the end of the day, you're going to be happier if you step into them rather than trying to hold on to a past or a memory or something that isn't quite working the way you want it to be. So the second word I mentioned is persistence. And one thing I've been focusing on a lot this year, and I'm using this podcast as an example, is just being persistent, being consistent, persistent, being willing to step into the unknown, being willing to make myself a little uncomfortable, being willing to really take on the opportunity, take on the challenge head on, being persistent, even though you're going to have challenges, even though I'm going to have the self-limiting thoughts and the beliefs are kicking in and it's triggering all kinds of self-doubt and worry and fear and all just the normal things that every human being goes through. I'm going through the same things. And the idea of persistence, of being able to stay in the game and keep going, I share with my wife a lot, especially, and I'm just referring to the podcast today as these three words that I'm sharing with you. But the podcast, I told my wife from the very beginning, I just can't stop. Don't let me stop. Meaning, I just need to keep going. I need to continue to be persistent with the content, with the message. It's a creative outlet for me. I really enjoy doing this. And staying in the game and staying persistent is the key. So I'd ask you, what areas of your life do you need to be a little bit more persistent? Where do you need to push through? So one thing I've done too many times in my life is I will start off in a journey and I will start to climb the hill, climb the mountain of whatever goal or task I'm trying to accomplish, whether it's a business goal, whether it's a financial goal, whether it's building a podcast, whether it's whatever the goal is. And I will get well onto the journey and then I will turn around and I will just stop. I won't continue. I've done that so many times in my life, and I can go back and I can map out exactly where I've stopped, whether it's a self-imposed limitation, whether it's something that from my external world is told me that I shouldn't keep moving forward. There's been so many different times that I haven't pushed through, where I haven't been persistent in the idea of just keep going, just keep going. You never know what the final destination will be. Now, you can pivot, as I've mentioned. That's where the first word came in. You can pivot along your way of being persistent, but the idea is that you need to keep pushing through, keep being persistent with your ideas, with your actions, with your thoughts. Keep going. And if you need to find folks that can help you with being persistent, help you be more confident in your journey, I would highly suggest that you do that. And as I've mentioned, my wife is that steadfast rock foundation for me, especially right now with this podcast and trying to move forward with creating content, putting my message out there in the world, and trying to help as many people as I possibly can. So once again, stay persistent. See yourself through to the end. Stop quitting, stop turning around before you get to that final destination, which I'm hoping with, as I mentioned with the podcast, it's going to be a beautiful thing. And that's why I appreciate you being here with me today. So the last word that I want to share with you today, and this one's really been a really big challenge for me this year, and this word is patience. I'm not a very patient person, and that goes along with my persistence issue, meaning I get impatient for a result that I think I should have or that I think I should be able to get to faster than what is probably obviously accurate, which makes me then usually stop or quit way too soon. The story in Lead the Field from Earl Nightingale talks about the story of 3 feet from gold. And I won't go through the entire story here, but the premise is that the gentleman was gold mining and he quit 3 feet from the gold vein that would have paid him handsomely for the rest of his life and generations to come. And that's typically my story, is I get 3 feet from wherever I'm heading and I will turn around. I will quit. I will stop. And I want to encourage you today to not do that, not only for yourself, but for your family, for your friends, for your community. People need to hear what you have to say. People need you to step up and be the best version of yourself. And patience comes along with that. Being willing to sit in the, let's call it the kind of the messiness of life, right? Life isn't always picture perfect. Life isn't always pretty all the time. Things are going to come up in your journey. For example, for myself this year also in 2023, not only am I trying to build out the podcast, but I've actually been had the had the awesome opportunity. I am now a grandpa to a young, awesome young man, young boy named Rowan that has completely changed my life, meaning the amount of time, the amount of effort that I'm trying to pour into that little boy at this point in my life. I've taken on the responsibility of being pretty much a caretaker throughout the week while his parents and the other people in my family are working. So I'm watching him throughout the day, which is challenging, but it's also super fun. And it's challenging me to be patient, challenging me to be patient with him, challenging me to be patient with myself, challenging me to be patient with the podcast. I keep referring back to the podcast here with this episode today. The idea is that I need to be patient with myself, with where I'm at in my life. I have a goal. I have an idea of where I'm headed. I need to continue to pivot as I go along through that journey, making the changes necessary. When something doesn't feel right, when you're involved in a situation or a group of people or just anything that's going on in your life and you're not exactly sure, or you get that intuition, that feeling that isn't quite right, being willing to pivot when necessary, but then also having the persistence to keep moving through those changes, right? Knowing that just because you're changing, just because you're pivoting doesn't mean that you need to stop. And then having the patience to see it through, having the ability to sit with wherever you are today and just being calm, understanding that all the chaos that's going on out there in the world doesn't necessarily have to be the chaos that's going inside of you with your thoughts, with how you're feeling. If you can take some of those things in-house, get quiet, really get clear on exactly what you're looking for, what you're wanting, you will then be able to see begin to see a roadmap of exactly where you need to go and exactly what you want to do. And then you need to have the courage to step into that. And I would encourage you to do that as quickly and as soon as you possibly can. So if at the end of 2023 is your time, let's go. And if 2024 is your year, let's do it then. And you can, and I encourage you to do so. So those 3 words today, just wanted to jump on and share an episode with you of some of the thoughts, some of the things that are going on in my life today. Going through a lot of pivots. I've referenced the podcast, but I'm obviously doing a lot of pivots in my personal life, in my associations. A lot of things are going on in my life, and it's creating a lot of pivots. But I'm having to be persistent. I'm having to understand that the long-term goals of what I have for myself, for the podcast, for my family, are so important that I have to continue to be persistent and push through those times. And then last but not least, I need to be patient. I need to understand that just because I want something and I think I should have something today isn't necessarily going to be the case 100% of the time. And I just need to be patient with myself, with my family, with everything that's going on in my outside world, and just really be calm and be patient with myself from within. So hopefully you found that valuable today. I appreciate you being with me. I've been about a little bit more than 100 episodes so far into the podcast, and I'm really having a ton of fun being creative. My entire life, I've always been a creative person. I've always enjoyed drawing. I really enjoy just hitting record and talking to you. This is always a lot of fun for me to have my mind and my brain kind of firing off in a way that I feel is doing well, right? I'm hoping I am doing well. And if I am, if you would mind, if you would go to the podcast platform that you're listening on, and if you would be willing to share a review for the podcast, I would greatly appreciate that. And that will help me get the message out to more people for the RichMind Podcast moving forward into 2024 and beyond. So go out there, have a fantastic day. Focus on these 3 words. Take a moment, sit down and think about your life and see how you can take these 3 words and think through how you can implement some different ideas, some different strategies to propel yourself into a greater version of yourself here in 2023 and then going into the new year in 2024. So have a fantastic day. I look forward to coming back to you again very soon. Until then, bye now. Thank you for joining me on the RichMind Podcast. I hope you found a ton of value in this episode. If so, I'd really appreciate a 5-star review, and you can also share it with your family and friends. And as my mentor Jim Roden shared with me, in order to have more, you must first become more. And in order to become more, you must work harder on yourself than you do on your job. So go out there today and work harder on yourself to become more and build the life of your dreams. Until next time, my friends.